Hey guys, I hope you are doing well. For today, I just wanted to talk to you and share with you about a book that I recently finished reading. I won't say that it impacted me a lot, like the other books that I have read so far, but I will say that after reading this book, I'm not as surprised as about what's going on nowadays, especially with coronavirus and how people are reacting to it. It seems to me now that it's just normal for people to react in such different ways. Anyways, the book is called The Plague, and it is by a French philosopher named Albert Camus. Some of you probably come across him as you are taking classes in philosophy. Maybe you didn't. I sort of came across this person, his book, by accident. I never knew about him, but I stumbled on his book and I said, you know what? Why not give it a chance and read the book? The book is really about a pandemic that happens in a small city in Algeria. Algeria happens to be the birthplace of the writer, Albert Camus. It's fictional, and even though it's based on an actual event, the book is more dramatic in terms of how deadly the disease was. So the story begins with the doctor, the main character, who sees a rat on the street that was toiling at one spot and it coughed up the blood and then it died. When doctor sees this, he senses that something bad might happen. He has this bad hunch that something might happen, but he doesn't think too much about it. And as the story goes on, the rats were coming out of the sewer into the street by larger number every day, and the dead rats were filling up the trash cans along the city. And all of a sudden, the number of the dead rats decreased and all the rats disappears. It's at this time that the people in the city begin to get sick, showing symptoms such as high fever, stiffness, and even coughing up blood. The city government does act, which might have been too late because it took almost a year for the government to end the lockdown in the city. And during this lockdown, lots were happening that are fairly similar to what's happening now. For example, in the book, there are people who are angry, and these angry mobs were protesting to the governors to open up the city. And it's much like what's happening now with the people demanding to the governors in each state to open up their state. And there are those who, in the book, there are those who are burning the houses, thinking that it would keep the disease from spreading. Much like those who are, you hear the news about people drinking bleaches and things like that, hoping that they can clear out whatever virus that they might have in their body. And then there are main characters and other characters who are helping with him along the way to help those who are in need. Um, the main character is doing everything he can to help the people to stop this disease. He's sort of like Anthony Fauci in a way. So as you can see, the things that are happening right now isn't so much something completely new. It's actually this book was actually written several years ago, and somehow he was able to see that this was going to happen, and this did happen probably in the past as well too. And so it's very normal for people to react in such ways, such drastically different ways. But of course, the book isn't just about the plague, because there's something more to the story, um, more to it than the story of pandemic that happened in this city. In fact, Albert Camus is what we call an existentialist, and the book is heavily influenced by his thought as an existentialist, especially since the book is focusing on the suffering itself. At one time in this book, the doctor and the priest in the town witnessed a child dying of a plague. I think it is here that the author is questioning the providence of God, whether there is God who is taking care of this suffering, who is aware of this suffering. This might be the same question that you are probably asking too. Why is this happening? Where is God in all this chaos that's happening around us? And I do think that it's a valid question to ask. I mean, even myself, I asked that question before. But I firmly believe, this is what I firmly believe, that God's providence is here with us, even in this very moment that we're in it, even in this chaotic moment, there is God. God is always with us. I can't tell you why God has allowed this pandemic to happen, nor would I tell you straight up that God is doing this to punish people. And the only reason for why I would not tell you is this: we're not God. We don't know what God is doing. I mean, how can we know what God is doing when God is higher than us, when God thinks higher things than we do? But when something like this happens, especially when I was down in New Orleans after Katrina happened, one thing that has been confirming to me, one thing that I affirmed time after time, is that there is something that God wants to reveal to us through the situation that we're in it. If you've been actually keeping up with the news, and when you understand the history of America and what everything that has happened so far, you see that the issues are coming up out of the space right now. What you think that the racial issues are just sprung up out of nowhere? We had racial issues in the past. And what about those who are protesting against the state governments? What about the situation between the states and the federal government? All this had actually happened in the past. And it's just coming up because those were the issues that were not resolved. And somehow, through this situation, God is actually allowing us to see these issues and what we as a Christian react to this, how we are to react to these issues that are happening. As I'm going through this pandemic, I am more confident. It's been affirming more than ever that why we as a Christian are to be in this world, not just so that we can be absorbed into the world, that somehow we could just blend into the world and just become a part of the world, but so that through us, that God can shed much light into the world. There is so many areas in our lives that needs God's light and that needs God's justice. We're not trying to overthrow a system. That's not what we're trying to do. We simply want to share with the people the love of God and the justice that God wants to extend. I've been reading through Deuteronomy, and it's just filled. The book is just filled with God's justice, and we have lost the sense of God's justice in this world. And I do pray that if any one of you is interested in going into um, politics, or even if it's not politics, in wherever you are, wherever you might end up be, that you would have confidence that God has called you. It is God who calls you to be there. And through you, possibly through you, that God can reveal His justice and also His comfort to those who are weak and oppressed. We need people to to show that kind of justice and love to the world. So that's it for today. I just wanted to share with you about the book and how it had impacted me, how it's sort of changed my view of the world. But I hope that that, that there's something changing you as well in this time. So I'll see you next time. Be safe.